All right, let's get our Facebook group in here before we start the show. All right, there's 1 and 2. All right, welcome in. It's just me again today and Monday. Scott will be back on Wednesday for the Falcons and next Thursday for the Broncos, but just Nick Kendall here for Broncos for Breakfast. Going to keep it a little shorter today. I have back-to-back. Baby has a cold. I'm still getting over a cold, and back-to-back nights of baby waking up at 3 and then not going back to sleep. So going on cumulatively probably about, 10 hours of sleep, 11 hours of sleep the last 3 days. But hey, that's okay. We call that an alpine start for the hikers. Oh, I probably should grab my mic, huh? For the hikers and the mountain climbers out there. So we're living the dream, baby, and we're gonna get through it. And good to see you guys coming in here and hanging out with me this morning. And forgive me while I take a much needed coffee sip because my God, I am tired. God bless. Oh man. Well, if you guys have any questions for me at like 3 a.m., I guess I'm going to be up at that time going forward. So shoot them my way on Twitter when you do that. You can see the handle down there. But let's say hello to some people coming in here. And we got String Guy coming in saying, good morning, all. Good to see you, String Guy. Denver Luke coming in saying, good morning. One of my favorites, Jeremy Sean. Jeremy, you're going to break me one day with this Bo Nix stuff. Either if Bo Nix goes on to be the best quarterback ever, I'm never going to be able to live it down. I'm still pulling for him because he seems like a great guy. But I think Bo Nix is competent. I think he can be good. That's about as far as I can go right now. He says, morning, Nick. I feel like Denver isn't going to make a big trade up. Yeah, the fact that Sean said it was realistic seems like he wanted to say that. I think picks are too valuable to trade away in a rebuild. I'm with you, Jeremy. Denver just isn't in a team building spot, in my opinion, where it makes sense to go all in on that rookie quarterback. Now, granted, it's kind of like starting a family. There's probably never the exact right moment or time. So if if it happens, it happens, right? So I guess take that shot if you absolutely love somebody, but I just can't imagine Denver being able to outbid the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, you talk about a team that is in a window to make that trade. They have the draft capital to go do it, and that is an offense that is flush with talent. I mean, both their offensive tackles. Oh, Christian Darrisaw is probably he might be the most underrated tackle in football. Brian O'Neill, right tackle. You got their trio of weapons in Addison, Hawkinson, and of course Jefferson, who's probably the best wide receiver in football. A lot of those guys are going to be expensive soon, so it makes sense for Minnesota financially to go up and get that quarterback as well. And I don't know. They seem like a team they're in their go for it right now window in terms of getting a quarterback, but maybe Denver isn't up this high again. Who knows? I would think they'll probably be this high or higher next year, given the state of the roster, but that was probably a 6-win team last year, talent-wise, that ended up winning 8 because of coaching and turnover and injury fortune. So, that's you never know. That's why you play the game. Crazy things happen. Aaron Wagner comes in, said if they don't trade PS2, how can they even do this? Albright is convinced by his own sources the Broncos will not trade Patrick Surtain. But then he also says, but then I guess if a team looks and compares the roster's overall team trajectory, Denver will consistently have higher picks round 1 and 2. So that adds more value to other teams. Yeah, I think that's the real kicker here. That Broncos 2025 first round pick has got to be worth way more than pick 23 that Minnesota has. Now, granted, Minnesota can trade up to 4 first round picks to move up, and Denver can only trade 3 because you can only trade drafts this year and 2 years into the future until the draft is underway. It's kind of a weird rule. But yeah, that Broncos 2025 first round pick, if I was a team, I'm like, oh my God, if Denver's desperate, give me their 2025 first, because that's got a chance to be a top 5, top 10 pick next year. And there's a lot more value there, even though next year's class doesn't look quarterback great. There's some defensive players there. Really like Pierce from Tennessee, obviously Perkins from LSU. There's going to be some defensive standouts, no doubt, next season. Luther Burden from Mizzou. He's a fun one too. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that Broncos 2025 first is a valuable chip because I think a lot of teams would be thinking Denver's not going to be very good. Vegas says that, and I think a lot of people agree. Unintended consequences from Chris Heel says of trading to 4 is that no one is talking about as the up in the chances that we have to face Herbert with Marvin Harrison Jr. twice a year. Seems like the Chargers, and granted, this is all, speculation that time of year. But seems like the Chargers still want to move down off of 5, and they are seem much more interested in adding offensive line. So the trades du jour has been Minnesota trading up to 4 with Arizona, and then Arizona trading back up to 5 with the Chargers to go get Marvin Harrison Jr. So down and then up. We've seen that happen before. If Miami traded back and then traded up to get Jalen Waddle. So that's not outside the realm of possibility. But I think a lot of people really believe that Harbaugh is going to want to go offensive line there. And they can probably get a really good offensive lineman trading back. Fuaga and Latham have been 2 names that have been connected to them pretty consistently. It used to be Bowers. Now it doesn't seem as much Bowers. Bowers maybe slips a bit. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's that time of year, right? It's a lot of fun. All the speculation, nobody knows until it's live. Mike Givens coming in. God bless you, Mike. God, I needed that 1999 today. Honestly, I was so happy when I saw it before I started this show. So God bless you. Good morning, Nick. Good morning to you, Mike. Hope you're doing well, keeping the lights on, and taping the bags, taping my eyelids up today. Jamal Killings, Morning Broncos Country. Has status been revoked? I don't know what that is, DWI guys, but I do want to say hello to Ethan because he's awesome. Love Ethan. Hope you're doing well. Troy Boer, also much love. Man, some of my all-time favorites in here today. I miss Scott, but feeling a little bit better in here. If we trade up for future picks and miss, we likely cannot get another top quarterback for 2 more years. If we trade back and miss, we build up the team and can try for a top quarterback again next season. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You got to have, if you're trading up, you better have conviction. And it's kind of a weird spot because let's say Minnesota has 4 quarterbacks they like, but Denver has 3. Minnesota would probably be comfortable trading up to 4 before the draft, where Denver would want to wait until the draft is actually underway. But if it's the opposite, Denver likes 4 guys and Minnesota likes 3, maybe Denver can move up before the draft, and then Minnesota would kind of be sit there left with their picks in their hand, if you know what I mean. But we'll see what happens. You definitely give yourself more flexibility going forward if you don't trade up for a quarterback, but the ultimate is trading up for a quarterback and hitting, right? Like, what are the odds of that? Do you have enough conviction? What is your off ramp if that doesn't hit? I mean, you think I guess how much worse can it get, right? If you miss now, it's just like you're bad longer, but you've already been bad for so long. It just kind of feels like Groundhog's Day, right? It can get worse though. But that's, we saw that in, 2022. That was woof. But and right now I'm more trade back, but I'm a little bit more conservative. And I think that the roster is so far away. I just think they're lacking so much talent. It's something that drives me nuts. I think it's not academically dishonest because that's like people lying, but people mention look how fast Houston turned it around. The Houston Texans circumstances to the Broncos circumstances are so different. They were flush with top 100 draft picks that were up-and-coming players, ascending talent. They had the draft haul. Let's not mince words. It was a haul for Deshaun Watson that gave them a lot of capital and flexibility. And they were sitting there at number 2 overall, having earned it without having to trade up. So different from Denver, who hasn't made a top 50 pick since Javonte Williams, who is just unbelievable dead cap money. I don't even know what Houston's dead cap was. I can't imagine it's what Denver's is right now. Who now Denver sits at 12 instead of 2, and they don't have all the extra picks from trading away what was perceived as a star quarterback at the time. If you hit on the quarterback, things can turn around quick, no doubt. But I just don't. There's just so many factors where Houston has such a huge advantage over Denver from that rebuild and where they're at now compared to where Denver's at right now. I think it's a tougher, longer, more uphill road for Denver. A lot of burn scar they got to crawl over there. We got Quentin Caldwell coming in here with the $5 super. Says, good morning, everyone. Hope you and the baby boy feel better quickly. I'm feeling better. I'm just very tired. Very tired today. Hopefully here we go. Good. Trying to click it and it wouldn't go. Good morning, Nick. Been there with babies, raised 4 girls. Yeah, it was last night. After having the baby from 3 to 6, and then the dog dropped the toy and woke him up after I finally got him to sleep. And I took him to my wife, you have to take him. I am not, I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. I got to go do the live stream and get coffee and something. I've been with them for so long. She's at home right now. So God bless her. She's tougher than me, but definitely felt Needed the baby off my hands for a second. Oblivion Empire. Hello to you, Oblivion. Good to see you. We got Philip Hogginson coming in saying, "Morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well." Hefref saying, "I'm excited to see all of the quarterbacks bust in the draft." What a hedonist? That's the wrong word. Masochist? Something. Schadenfreude, there for sure. Good to see you, FRFs. Keith Brugman coming in says, "Good morning, Nick. Is Penix a real option with McGlinchey protecting his blind side?" Yeah, honest to God, I think that the blindside stuff's a little overrated. A lot of the best edge rushers in football now line up over the right tackle instead of the left tackle. And with how much shotgun stuff there is on obvious pass downs, the angle for the quarterback's vision is not as truly blindside, because if you're further back, you have a wider scope, right? You can see more of the pass rushes, where if you're like, drop back to the line of scrimmage, play action, deep drop, that's blindside. And the biggest, honestly, my favorite quarterback hit of all time came from Elvis Dumervil popping Tom Brady, and that was beating the right tackle and hitting Tom Brady in his chest, and Tom Brady never saw him coming. So that's obviously anecdotal, sample size of 1, but I think that where we're at with the NFL today, there's a slight value of left tackle, but let's say it's out of like 10, and left tackle being like a 10 out of 10 in value. Not really, because with the quarterback and other stuff, but let's say it's 10 out of 10. Right tackle will be a 9 out of 10. It's right there. You need 2 good tackles because teams will just move their best pass rushers around to find your weakest offensive lineman. It's kind of like secondary a lot of times, although not exactly, but a lot of times those units are only as good as their weakest player, because defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators will target the weakest player. So I don't think left tackle, right tackle makes that much of a difference as far as blindside or not blindside. Penix being a real option. I mean, there's a lot of talk this time of year and up and down, but I went back and found my notes from January where I had these quarterbacks ranked, and really the only guy that I've moved up some has been JJ McCarthy, because I've had to watch more games to get an actual sample size for McCarthy, because the pass attempts are so low. And I came away, and also the advanced data is good for McCarthy too. So really, I'm pretty similar to where I've been since January. I don't know if that's a good process or bad process. Besides McCarthy, who's moved up from late round 1 to somebody that I'm comfortable taking at 12. I don't know if I'd trade up for him, though, personally. I mean, okay, let me say that I would, if he was sitting there at 9, or Jaden Daniels was sitting there at 9 and it wouldn't cost you your 2025 first to go get him, I might be interested. But the haul that it takes to get up to 1, 2, 3, or 4, not 1, but let's say 3 or 4, I don't think I'd trade up for Daniels or McCarthy in that range. And heck, I could be wrong. Jeremy says, "Let's not be Carolina and trade away a number 1 overall to draft a guy who might not have it." That's always the risk. Luckily, next year doesn't look like it has the quarterbacks compared to this season, so doesn't hurt as much. But I think it's still really risky for where Denver's roster is at. Robot of Doom coming in says, "Morning, Nick. Hope you're feeling better. Feeling better cold-wise, feeling a lot more tired. What is your honest best situation Denver can do this year? I'm, in my opinion, stay at 12, then realize we're going to be a top 3 pick next year. Then we get a great player there, or trade back and build up picks. Best thing Denver can do this year." Excuse me. I got sitting on my hands. It's cold down here today, so I didn't have a chance to hit the mute button there before I coughed. I mean, ideally, I think you trade back and you get a lot of top 100, top 50 picks, and you end up walking out with an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman. That's very boring, meat and potatoes kind of stuff. But which was the Lance Zierlein mock, he had the Broncos going Kenyon Mitchell, cornerback from Toledo at 12, which great player. Broncos having questions at cornerback. Does cornerback make sense considering you traded up for Riley Moss and your defensive line is terrible and you got so many questions on offense? You need a quarterback. You don't really have difference makers at weapons. I mean, another cornerback, I don't know. He'd have to be an all-pro guy to justify that in my book, which is not really a fair ask. But the cornerbacks really drop off this year, so if you can walk away with a good one, I guess I get it. But ideally, in that situation, I saw picks 18, 19, and 20, I believe it was, with Talise Fuaga, offensive lineman from Oregon State, Troy Fontenot, offensive lineman from Washington, and Leatu Latu, edge rusher from UCLA. All those guys went 18, 19, 20. If I can trade back from 12 to that range and take one of those 3 and get an additional second-round pick this year and a third-round pick in 2025, sign me up. That's what I'd be looking at. If I could possibly do something like that, I'd like that a lot more. And then heck, maybe you then can package some of those picks and go get Bo Nix, Spencer Rattler, Michael Penix, early round 2, mid round 2, something like that. Maybe late round 1 even. That's what I'd be looking to do. But we'll see how it plays out. That's just where I'm at. That's just one guy's opinion. Who knows? Do we have a Scott Kennedy update? He is having a blast, and he's scuba diving. He's Scuba Steve out there, or Scuba Scott, and he's having a good time. So he'll be back Tuesday, but won't be live with me again until Wednesday morning with the Falcon stuff. We got Jay Roper coming in saying, "Yo, Doug's in the house and good morning. Do you think Will Greer, that's a name, has a chance to return to a good quarterback? He's with the Eagles now, started the Panthers in Dallas. I don't see it with Will Greer. Loose arm mechanics, just kind of spotty accuracy. Played in an air raid system, so he put up numbers, but I just never really saw him the ability to really push the football, drive the football, if that makes sense. Kind of a thin player as well. I mean, he's going to bounce around and have a chance as a quarterback 3 option, and maybe he can be a spot starter here or there. But I don't see him being a viable starter in the league. I mean, but heck, if you're people talk about that like that's a bust. I mean, what was he, a 5th round pick or something? Sticking around the league still, that's fine. I mean, heck, I've even talked about Drew Lock, he's a bust or whatever. He went pick 43, 42, 45, something like that. And he's gotten 2 contracts now, 3 contracts now, I guess 2, and he's still in the league. I mean, he's probably a pretty average hit for a round 2 quarterback. I don't think he's a hit or a bust. He's just that's about what you expect for a round 2 quarterback. So still in the league getting paid. So good for him. Seems like a good guy. Didn't love the Drew Lock fervor in here, trying to be convinced that he was something that I believed he wasn't. But fine quarterback in terms of that backup spot starter type. I think he's got a chance to be a Ryan Fitzpatrick type in the league for a bit. David Youngkin, good to see you. Morning, Nick and Broncos country. Michael Evans says 5 quarterback, 2 or 3 will fail. Probably. I mean, you never know, right? What was the it was the 2020 draft? Yeah, 2020 draft. Yeah, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and Jordan Love. I mean, that's 4 out of 4, right? That's some. But then you have the next year is supposed to be the better draft year. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones, and you got 1 out of 5 there. So it's tough, man. It's tough to go on. Conga coming in here saying it's becoming more difficult to remember when the Broncos were good. I remember when they were good. It was many, many years ago in a galaxy far, far away. We got Joey coming in. Like you said, not really a lot to quality quarterback next year. I think you have to pull the trigger. We'll have a ton of money to soon after Wilson contract to spend on free agents to help add pieces. Who knows about next year's quarterback class, right? Things can change. There definitely isn't we had strong premonitions last year. Not premonitions, wrong word. We had ideas that Drake May and Caleb Williams were guys a year ago. Right now, heck, I mean, I remember watching Bo Nix versus Drake May in the Duke Mayo Bowl. I don't remember which bowl they played in the two seasons ago. But I was like, oh my gosh, Drake May, he is huge. He's got a huge arm, and the pocket manipulation for a redshirt freshman. That guy has got a chance to be something. Don't really feel that way about any of the quarterbacks next year. Sorry, Colorado fans. Shedeur Sanders is going to be a first-round quarterback in my book, but the talk about him being, no doubt number 1 is I don't know. I don't see that right now, but things can change. I do. It's not been. Some of draft Twitter is kind of starting to talk about him, and when I watched him, I was like, okay, we got a live one here. Weigman from Texas A&M, before he got hurt, that arm, man, he can throw the rock. So keep an eye out for him. But that's one. Obviously Carson Beck and Shedeur Sanders, and we saw Jaden Daniels kind of come out of nowhere this year as far as a draft eligible prospect. Penix and Nix put again another good seasons together. We had an idea about McCarthy, but it was still potential. It still kind of feels like we're in a similar area with him. But he did it twice, so I guess did a lot of stuff in third and passing down. So that's good. But we'll see. I think there's a chance that some guys can obviously rise up. Says I have to go watch later. Try to get some sleep. What is sleep? Who knows? One day, maybe one day. Mike Mueller says, good morning, Nick from the Quad Cities. Hell yeah, Mike. That's my homeland. Go Lady Hawks. Really, really excited to see what Iowa can do against UConn tomorrow. Gotta love the the Lady Hawks for sure. I don't know if I'm the mad pessimist here, but I'm definitely I don't think I'm a pessimist as much as I am a skeptic. Maybe it's the scientist in me, but I got to see it to believe it, right? Even if, I got a large enough sample size. It's the clinical trials data manager epidemiologist in me. I want to see the data. DWI guys comes in, says, good morning, Nick and Broncos country. Good to see you, Ethan. Man, we love Ethan. Ethan, thank you so much for the support. Hope you're doing well. Jeff comes in and said, with how this roster actually is, why not trade back and get more capital and take a chance on Rattler while improving the skill positions early? I mean, I'm with you, Jeff, mostly until we get to the spot about the skill positions. I think with the roster being further away, it makes more sense to take hard to find positions, especially ones that are like body types that you typically only can get in the first round, that are a little bit more slow burn. And what do I mean by that? Positions that don't come in year one are pretty close to what they're going to be in the league already. I'm talking about developmental positions. So edge rusher, defensive tackle, offensive tackle, the value positions there. Those are ones that a lot of times, and you go across the last decade of PFF's top 10 graded players. Now I know PFF has footnote here, like not the end all be all, but like you can kind of get an idea of where the neighborhood of these guys are. And like linebacker, it's picks all across the board. Running back picks all across the board. Wide receiver, top 100 picks, but not necessarily has to be round one. You get to edge rusher, offensive tackle, and defensive tackle. It's like 80% of the time they're first round picks, top 40 picks. It's pretty crazy. So that's where I'm looking. If you're trading back, it's more the slow burn positions. And then hopefully by the time those guys start to reach what they are as an NFL like ceiling, the team will be starting to really ascend and be contenders, at least feisty. So that's where I'm at. As far as Rattler, I mean, I have Rattler, Penix, and Nix kind of all pretty close together. If anybody wanted to fight that one is way better than the other ones there, or one is way worse than the other ones, I'm not going to argue with that. It's just it's where I have them. It's what I graded them as. So we'll see how they play out. Probably when I have guys clumped together like that, it's going to come down to like scheme fit and personality fit, and also the intangibles. Work ethic. Does this guy have to be great? That's what I'm about. As far as if the tier differences are there, if I was making the decision for the teams. But we'll see what happens here. We got Robbie Nuns coming in and says, what's up, Nick? What's up, Robbie? Hope you're doing well. Really cute kid there in that picture. He says, love the insight. 3 more weeks of pounding the table to trade up for Drake May. It'd be a lot of fun. 1 second. I'm going to cough. God bless. Gotta love it. Yeah, meat and potatoes all the way. Richard Miles comes in and says, I've been thinking Bo Nix for a long time now and thought Sean Payton wants him from the start. It's certainly possible, man. If they take Bo Nix and Payton thinks, he's making the right read consistently and like I don't have to, operate, with crazy arm talent and just good enough athleticism to like keep defenses honest. I mean, the thing I love about Bo Nix is that he's a tough runner, man. He's going to be hard to bring down, and I really appreciate the toughness that he brings to the field and the smarts he brings to the field. Now, do I think he has big upside? I don't. But on a rookie contract, especially if he's super smart and driven, he'd be a damn good quarterback still. Probably somebody I would take day 2, but just given the way that I scout quarterbacks, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be good. Michael Ronquillo coming in saying, good morning, Nick, and Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Go, Michael. Hope you're doing well. The Ronk man out there in Tucson. Kevin comes in. So the new kickoff rules, should we draft a Devin Hester type? I don't want to see Mims in that role, too valuable. That's possible. I think that you probably don't have enough picks right now to be in that range. And Mims right now is like far enough off as a wide receiver that I just need to figure out ways to get the ball in his hand and create explosive plays. So, and also you have like a lot of wide receivers now. I agree he's potentially valuable on offense, but like last season, just after like the Washington game, he kind of disappeared. Now, some of that's the scheme and Russell Wilson and how teams are playing the Broncos and the lack of, the ability to go elsewhere. But yeah, I think early on, I probably would have Mims in that role just because of, you mentioned the new kickoff rule. I think there's a lot of value there. I don't think it's a surprise that as soon as that kickoff rule was announced, Cordell Patterson was snatched up. right? Like I think there's a lot more value to those returners these days coming in here. We got the real question: why did Kirk Cousins not go in the first round? He's like a really small frame body type for a quarterback, like light. There's been like very few quarterbacks as like light and slender and small as him. Not a great athlete, not a great arm, but it's hard to evaluate the intangibles and intelligence and accuracy going from college to the NFL. There's just like aspects to the college game, the white hash marks, the total difference in like talent levels that you're going against. And I think Kirk Cousins was on that team with Mark D'Antonio as the head coach. They had Le'Veon Bell, and they just pounded the absolute hell out of the rock. So really wasn't on Cousins' shoulders to get it done. Just not a lot of flash. But you don't always have to have flash to get it done. I think flash gets your foot in the door for me first round, but there's, I can't remember who was. Somebody on Twitter is like, why would you ever want to take any of the quarterbacks on day two? It's like, well, I don't see the first round talent, which gives them more avenues to succeed, but there's enough there that like things work right in other areas. They could be a good starter. So that's kind of like where I'm at with Rattler, Penix, and Nix. So that's the conversation framing for Kirk Cousins. Kirk fell all the way to the fourth. So that was a really good pick. There haven't been, outside of Brock Purdy, I can't think of, and Jalen Hurts, I don't know if there have been many quality starters drafted outside the first round in the last like 5-10 years, but that's Cousins is definitely one of them. Might have been over 10 years ago now though. So, we're getting old, folks. Troy Brewer coming in. How much weight should we give to statements that a player fits 3-4 instead of a 4-3 scheme? I don't think any anymore, to be honest. There's so much hybrid schemes and different ways that you are specializing these athletes and players. I think it's much more, I think the question of coverage scheme, where those guys kind of fit, like a pure man corner, zone cover, off, on, that's a question. And what type of like gapping do you have up front for a defensive player to define their role? But teams are using guys in so many ways now. It's kind of a bastardization of defensive schemes that 3-4 and 4-3, I think, is out the window as far as base. I mean, really the question is, are you playing like a 3-2, 3-2-6 or a 4-2-5 or whatever that looks like on your back end as far as what your nickel is, because teams are playing first and second down like passing downs nowadays. You're not seeing much base anymore. Michael Ronquillo says, Nick, would you draft a quarterback this year or next? I'm looking to draft a quarterback this year. I like Drake May enough that if he falls to 3 or 4, and even if it costs you that 2025 first, I'd probably take that shot. I get pretty uncomfortable when you're talking about, 1-3 next year, 1-2-3 the year after, and like 1 in 2026. That's when it's like, I don't know about that. But that's one who stands out for me. I really like Drake May still. I know it's kind of weird. Seems like the NFL isn't as high on Drake May. And the last time I felt like I loved a guy and the NFL didn't love them as much was Justin Fields. So get a little bit of what am I missing here? Sometimes, but I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. It's pretty hard to evaluate these quarterbacks. Chris comes in here and says Carson Beck will be the number one guy next year. He's got a chance. He reminds me a lot of Jared Goff, kind of a lanky guy, not really super twitched up, not in like incredible drive. Goff's got a good arm. I don't even want to dismiss it. I think Beck's arm is not quite as good as Goff's, but that's who I see stylistically as a quarterback. We have Robbie Nunn's coming into 2025. Why is there not much talk about Jackson Dart? I think he could have a huge year under Kiffin. I just don't think he's like overwhelming in the tools department. And that's a big aspect for the tangibles, big aspect of foot in the door evaluation at this point, especially drafting the quarterbacks in 2025. So we'll see. Things can change. I know Jackson Dart, right? Got the crazy NIL deal with a private jet company or something. So good for him. He's living a good life out there. Hope you're doing well, Robbie. We also got Rob Bucksbaum coming in, says, good morning, Nick. With Diggs gone, is Buffalo now a prime team to trade back with? We can include Sutton as a part of the deal. Wouldn't be shocked if Buffalo tried to trade up, but also wouldn't be shocked if Buffalo stood pat. They seem like a team that's kind of reinventing themselves, kind of like the Chiefs did a few years ago when they moved on from Hill, and they kind of totally changed what they did offensively from more of a vertical offense to more of a horizontal offense, emphasize the offensive line, and a lot of picks on defense. Then we'll see what happens with the Bills, but that core that they had, sun had set. So they're going to have another chance, no doubt. With Josh Allen there, you got another sick, probably. I mean, with how he plays, you never know. Can't get Cam Newton and kind of fall apart, but I would assume another 5 to 8 years there to get it right. That's one reason we talk about quarterbacks in here and team building, and like, well, Brock Purdy gets it done with that team. Well, the team around him is going to fall apart pretty quickly because you're talking about 20 guys versus one guy. So the Bills, they might not be a Super Bowl winner 2025. It's hard for anybody with Mahomes right now. But because they have a quarterback of Allen's caliber, they can reshuffle the deck, and it's more of a chances shooting the ball 10 years in a row versus, if we don't win in the next 2 years, this core is going to age. They're going to get hurt. Other teams are going to pay them, and then we have to pay our cost-controlled quarterback. Your windows are much shorter when you build teams outside of the star quarterback. Easier said than done, of course. We have Joseph Warnell comes in, says, which quarterbacks will become available over the next few years? Can get extended. Dak, Trevor, Tua, Herbert. There will be better options. Do the rebuild and start the build and go out. I think Herbert signed a big contract, so he's probably not going anywhere. But Dak, Trevor, and Tua are ones to keep an eye on. I personally would not want anything to do with Tua with the concussions and the overall limitations in the arm talent and athleticism and size. Those are things for me that I'm looking for. And I think the other thing is the rumors of his contract were like absurd. I don't know, man. Like, if that's a pretty good offensive system he has there, and it feels like he bumps his head up against, he just doesn't have the ability to do jazz, right? He's purely classical music there in an orchestra with Mike McDaniel conducting it all. But when you need jazz from your quarterback, I don't know if Tua's got that. Dak and Trevor, I like Dak. I'm a big Dak fan. I've been a big Dak fan since that draft. I really wanted Chris Jones and Dak Prescott in that 2016 draft. And we ended up getting a quarterback and defensive lineman. Not those two, though. We ended up getting Paxton Lynch and Adam Gotsis. God bless. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, folks. It's not a genius or anything. Nobody's accusing me of that either. But man, I wanted Dak and Chris Jones in that class, and how different the world would be if the Broncos did that. Coach Chris comes in, $20, says, my Magic 8 Ball says we trade back and get a haul for it. I don't know if they're going to get a haul without a quarterback trade, but that's possible. Coupled with some compensatory picks, we have a solid draft capital in 25. Having said that, we do have Sean, so who knows, feel better and go Broncos. Feeling better. The one negative here, Coach Chris, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, is Broncos are not slated to get any compensatory picks right now. With the guys they've signed, they actually all cancel out what picks Denver would be getting back. The Jones signing, the Roach signing, and I think even another one as well. I don't think it's a Reynolds one, but right now Denver's not set to get any draft picks or compensatory picks in 2025. So that can change. We'll see what happens here. But Michael coming in again. Good to see you, Michael. Hamiak Miranda says Kirk won with an amazing agent. Yeah, God bless. Good for Kirk. Awesome to see him get all that money there. And I'm like happy for Atlanta, right? They got a good core there. That's another team that made sense to now's your window. Go out and get it. A little different than Minnesota though, because they're all like a young cost-controlled core, where Minnesota's about to be expensive. Adam Strange coming in says, "What's up, Broncos maniacs? Good to see you." And I did want to share the clip for the main show point today. We have Ian Rapoport coming in and talking about the Broncos potentially being one of the main teams that can go up for a trade here. So let's see what Ian has to say. Oh, of course it's muted. Where are we at? Mute button. There we go. Awesome.
Potential trades for quarterbacks. And as we look at teams looking to make that jump, Vikings, obviously, after acquiring that second first-round pick, are up there in that conversation, as are the Broncos, who need a quarterback. What kind of potential are we looking at for a trade up from teams like that?
Yeah, there could be some fireworks here. You guys talked about the potential of going quarterbacks as the first 4 picks. That is very possible. And if that happens, though, it's going to mean there is a trade, and potentially a trade from a team outside the top 10. We already know the Minnesota Vikings are a potential trade-up team for a quarterback when they acquired that extra first-round pick after that fascinating trade with the Houston Texans over the last several days. That spotlighted them as a potential move-up team. And I wasn't so sure that the Denver Broncos were one of those teams. And I asked Sean Payton, would he consider them to be a realistic team to move up? And he said, absolutely. He does consider them a team potentially to move up. Could be from 12 up to 4 or maybe 5. We will see where the fourth quarterback goes, but I would keep my eye on both these teams and the Raiders as well.
Well, there you have it, folks. Broncos, Raiders, Vikings, and a race for a quarterback. I would not rule out the New York Giants either, sitting there at 6, especially because that 6th pick is like super valuable, especially if 4 quarterbacks go in the top 5, because you're going to have a chance at Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze. I mean, giddy up. That if I was the Cardinals, I would love to trade back with the Giants and get the 6th overall pick and a 2025 first and still get one of the top wide receivers in this class. That would make me very excited if I was them. But yeah, that's we'll see what happens there. We got Troy Boer coming in and says, what about DTR since the Browns also have so many quarterbacks? Possible. That's a name I haven't thought about. He seems not likely as like a starter type, but if you're looking for a backup to come in and maybe do something, that's possible. Jess Canady says 4 top 100 picks trading down with the next year picks. A lot of money next year. Free agency will be very strong. Yes, it will. They'll have a decision to make about Patrick Surtain a year from now too, and Quinn Miners. That's a good chunk of money right there. But they'll probably do something with like big money at the end and maybe even void years when the time comes. Who knows with Sean Payton here, right? But that's something I could see happening there. We have Adam Arson. Any team could trade up. These guys get paid to say things like this. Thanks, Captain Obvious. Well, I mean, the insiders talk about what they're hearing and like what teams are more likely. Any team could trade up, right? I think it's a more interesting question. We had a show a couple weeks ago is like, what are the team candidates to the Broncos that might trade up to 12, and who could Denver trade back with? Those are the ones that are, well, maybe have that conversation again at some point, but I wanted Scott here to have that one. But hey, man, it's good work if you can find it. If you could just, say, hey, I think this team might trade up. But you'll never know. We got the Bookmeister coming in, says, good morning, Big Dog. Hoping we snag JJ. I'd be okay with Knicks too. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Adam R says Sean Payton has to develop a quarterback. His job is on the line here. I can tell I'm already going to be very much in the minority here, but I was in the minority last year similarly, where it's not 1 for 1. But last season, I definitely was pushing back against a lot of folks in the department of Denver has to go for a veteran head coach. Oh, they went with Vic Fangio, first-time head coach, then with Nathaniel Hackett, first-time head coach. They cannot go with a first-time head coach again. And I said, I don't give a flying hoot if it's a first-time head coach or not, or a veteran head coach. Just get the right guy. And Sean Payton might be the right guy, but this was mainly in response to my love for D'Amico Ryans. And some folks in here liked D'Amico Ryans as much as I did, maybe more, I don't know. But also a lot of folks in here and, Twitter in general, like, oh, you can't get D'Amico Ryans. You cannot bring in another rookie head coach. Faulty logic, folks. That's the pendulum swinging, overcorrection, classic, and the psyche of the human mind. But don't overcorrect. Reevaluate the options every time they're presented. There's new variables. People look for patterns and things to make sense in the chaos of the universe, but a lot of times it is chaos. So I'm using that also for the quarterback conversation. Oh, the Broncos have tried quarterback, veteran quarterback, everything. They have to finally draft a guy, trade up for a guy. Do not go for the veteran quarterback route. Well, what are the options available? Let's say the Broncos sit there this year and they don't get a quarterback until the 4th and Michael Pratt. They bring in Ryan Tannehill and have Jarrett Stidham here as well. And it's a pretty ho-hum year. And you're sitting there with the 7th overall pick next year. Unfortunately, once again, out of range without a big trade up for probably one of the top quarterbacks if there are any next year. But a good spot, and I have a chance to really rebuild. You got a lot of cash available too. And Dak Prescott becomes available. I'll be happy to be in the minority again, just like I was with D'Amico Ryans last year. If Dak is available and you can get him in here, especially for his style of play, with his fit with Sean Payton, and the money the Broncos have, I'd be game. I'd be very, very interested if in that available, especially if he's a free agent and you don't have to trade picks for him. But that's one that would interest me a lot. And it's like, what about Russell Wilson? Completely different style of quarterback. Could not be any different. Honestly, opposite ends of the spectrum. Russell Wilson, athlete, deep arm, chaos merchant, struggles off the first read, home run to check down. Dak might be one of the top 3 quick game quarterbacks in football, one of the best pre-snap quarterbacks in football. And I see, there's going to be pushback. Like Dan says, Dak choke artist, kind of. I mean, he's never gotten over the hump, but I'm going to trust the broader sample size and that he's been a top. I mean, EPA per play has him as a top 3 quarterback the last 3 years or 2 years. I don't think he's there, but he's a top 7-10 quarterback. And I think that Dallas has been very overrated as an overall roster, personally, especially on. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you guys saw the game last year. They gave up 41 points in the first 3 quarters. Dak had like 40 dropbacks in the first 3 quarters, and it was the singular worst playoff game in the Super Bowl era a defense gave up to an opposing offense. And Adam, says no Dak as well. You can disagree with me. That's okay. But I like Dak. I hate it and I like Dak, just sick of it. Says Chris, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, it's fine. You guys are fine. Disagreeing with that. But Neris, Denver can't afford draft. We want championships, not regular season accolades. We're not even getting regular season accolades at this point. So we're not the laughing stock of the NFL yet, but we're getting close, folks. So, I mean, heck, we might be actually right now with the Russell Wilson fallout. But I digress. I think Dak's a really good quarterback. I also think he's one that is going to continue to be very good with age. I think it's very different than Russell Wilson. Wilson, to me, struggles reading the football field, dependent on athleticism, broken play guy, deep shot guy. Now teams are taking away the deep ball more than ever before from a scheme perspective. They are forcing teams to work the middle of the field in the quick game and hit the checkdowns or the short route options and get to your second or third read, forcing you to do that. Stuff that Russell Wilson really struggles with. And now the athleticism is dipping. It's very different from Dak. I mean, it's so different from Dak. And then you talk about a team with Sean Payton's window. What is he going to be next year? 62 years old. You're going to have a lot of money to spend. You're going to have hopefully your war chest of draft pick back. We'll see what happens with the Broncos in the draft this season if they continue to trade future picks to move up for special teamers. But I don't know. We will see what happens there. I can continue to be in the minority there. I have a great respect for. I have a great respect for Dak Prescott as a quarterback, and I think he is very, very good. Red flags, though, of course. Why are the Cowboys letting him walk? That's a fair question. It's a fair question. And are you comfortable paying elite money for very good? Dak's a top 7-10 quarterback. What happens if you pay him as a top 3 quarterback? Those are fair points. Those are very fair points. So we're going to see what the options are, of course. Jay says that's an Iowa diss. Well, I'd better not hear any Iowa disses. Cal in the house too. Love Cal says solo. Yep. Why you got to leave me solo? Hopefully you're doing pretty well there, Cal. And I saw a question in here as well. From Dan. So appreciate you guys. Again, you can be against me with the Dak stuff. I am a very big Dak fan, and I think he is going to age. He might be entering his prime right now. I mean, the last 2 years are the best 2 years of his career, and that's not been actually a very good Dallas offense around him. Outside of CeeDee Lamb, I mean, CeeDee Lamb and Zach Martin. After that, it's a bunch of average players or worse. I like Tyler Smith a lot too on the offensive line, but it is not Dak rookie contract offense over there anymore. But also, he kept Jason Garrett a head coach for 10 years. I mean, God bless. Or a lot of those 10 years. Who will be the top 3 quarterbacks in next year's draft? If I had to bet right now, I would say it'll be Shadur Sanders, Carson Beck, and Casey Wigman. I think it's Casey. I might be mixing up here. I think there was a Casey Wigman who's like a center for a bit. Let me see. Texas A&M's quarterback. Let me pull up their depth chart here. Pardon me. I got a frog in my throat, of course. Connor. There we go. Connor Wigman, who is a 6'3", 220-pound quarterback. I think he was a former 5-star recruit. Like him a lot. Keep an eye out for him. Of course, it's always concerning. You never know what happens with those Texas A&M guys, right? But those are my top 3. I'm also still very intrigued by Riley Leonard. I know he had a lot of hype coming into this season. He's such a good athlete at the quarterback position that I'm going to keep an eye on him And now that he's going from Duke to Notre Dame, maybe he can be in a better spot. You also have a Jalen Milroe, who's more athlete than quarterback right now, but man, that dude is a great athlete. That's for sure. He just glides. And as far as just an overall package of tools, he has not put it together yet. So we are still off from that one. But like, as I said earlier, foot in the door. Quarterbacks for me, very much a foot in the door conversation. Drew Aller from Penn State. He was very inconsistent last season, very erratic, but he's big. He's got a huge arm. Some of the stuff he does, it's the flashes are like, oh, I get it. If he can put that together, look out. But Drew Aller is one that from Penn State, former 5-star recruit as well. Really like him. Final one I wanted to say was maybe he's a little bit older, but Donovan Smith from Houston. He's a big guy, big arm, 6'5", 240 pounds. Watching Houston this year, he stood out as well. So who knows? I don't always love the quarterbacks that are that old with that many reps because I think that there's less growth potential for them. If they've seen that many steps, they've already, the things that they are doing, they can't correct and improve as much. They've already kind of had that growth curve in college, but it's not always the case. It's not always the case. Yeah, we got some more coming in here. There's the colleges in Iowa. WTF? Yeah, I mean, Iowa has 3 state colleges. So it's a lot of, at least it used to be, and a land that really appreciated public education. I think even the Iowa Quarter says like founded in education on it. So sometimes I wish like, heck, if Iowa was like Wisconsin and we only had one big university, imagine how good our sports teams would be, right? Let's just abolish Iowa State. I think Cal, if he's still in here, sorry about that, buddy. But yeah, no, go Hawks for sure. Kathy in here says, hi, Nick, at this point, I'd rather reach a bit for an unknown quarterback from college and overpay for a known middle quarterback like Dak. I liked him more than Lynch coming out. I don't think Dak is a middle quarterback. Like I said, he's been one of the top 3 quarterbacks in football over the last 2 seasons. There's Cal. Been one of the best 3 quarterbacks in football statistically over the last 3 seasons. He was an MVP candidate last season. And I think it's very different from Russell Wilson for me, where I think it's more like Kirk Cousins. See what Kirk Cousins got paid coming off an Achilles injury, and he's going to be, 37, 38 years old? Dak is going to be, 32 next year? I could be wrong there. No, yeah, he's 30 right now, so he'll be 31 next year. Dak's going to get paid, and I really think that he is in his prime as a quarterback because he is so cerebral as a quarterback. So, I don't know. Well, it's probably all for naught, right? Like the Cowboys will probably in the end work out a deal and keep him there because he is a good quarterback. And the way their contract's set up, makes more sense to keep him than to let him walk. But who knows? Things are crazy. So we'll see what happens. One more cough before I close on out. Man, feeling better, but just a little tickle in my throat there. So, yeah, Chris says 32 next year. So you got 5 years then of Dak. I'd be fine with 5 years of Dak. Honestly, that lines up almost perfectly with what probably Sean Payton has left too. Just saying. But yeah, guys, we're going to get on out of here. Riding solo today. Hope you enjoyed it. Still wanted to bring you the content. Of course, given that it's April, the draft is right around the corner, and the Broncos quarterback stuff is the wheel that keeps spinning. Maybe one day we'll get off the ride, but for now, we're enjoying it for sure. So appreciate everyone. If there's anything in here that you vehemently disagree with or you want to ask more questions about, hit me up on Twitter. The Twitter handle is right there. Way too active on Twitter. So, you can help me disagree, especially again, like if you have questions and it's 3 a.m. Pacific time, I might be answering because gosh darn it, the little guy really likes being up at that time right now. But appreciate everyone coming in, especially the stars. I mean, gosh, you guys definitely make it worth it. That and the coffee from Lion Coffee Company. God bless you, Patrick, for that. But we got Mike Gibbons in the house, Troy Boer, Quentin Caldwell, DWI guys, Ethan, Robbie Nuns, Troy Boer again, Rob Bucksbaum, and Coach Chris. You guys all killed it today. Yeah, there's my guy, Patrick. Aloha, my coffee, Bretta. God bless you. And Michael Ronquillo, of course, as well. If I missed, just caveat here, the way StreamYard works, what we use to stream here, I don't get the compiled super chats like I do from YouTube from the Facebook side of things. So I'm just going to make an assumption that Michael came in here with a super chat. And if I missed anybody else's from Facebook, I am gratefully sorry. Hit me up on Twitter and I will try to get to you on Monday as well. So appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you're following myself on Twitter. Again, like we said earlier, on X, whatever you want to call it, at Nick Kendall MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, we're over on Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as that ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. Chris coming in with the $2. Thank you so much, Chris, supporting us, keeping the lights on. I got to say, some mornings it is very hard to get up out of bed because I have to be up then at 5 a.m. or something, especially if the baby's been up since 3 to get going, but that's okay. And what's the link for Lion Coffee? It's really simple, Jay. It's just lioncoffee.com. So really good. I'm partial to the macadamia and vanilla. I'm not a above flavored coffee by any means, and those are locally sourced ingredients there on Hawaii. Of course, macadamia nuts and vanilla bean, two of the biggest crops there out on Hawaii. So good times. Appreciate everyone. Make sure you guys gosh, see, I'm already starting to go on autopilot and probably get on out of here. So appreciate everyone coming in here. I will see you again on Monday. But until then, continue to choose kindness and compassion. Have a great weekend. Go Broncos.